up and sit down.
Hello there, Champagne Dreamers. Welcome back to another fabulous episode of Janessa After Dark. And this isn't just any regular episode. This is the second of our Sloppy Seconds episodes. So if you haven't listened to our first Sloppy Seconds episode, that's a weird sort of tongue twister. Basically what it is a collection of outtakes from our previous interviews. So Sloppy Seconds number 1 featured outtakes from my conversations with Chris Harder, Kelly Coxon, and Brooklyn Ewing. Now for this episode, I've got outtakes from my conversations with actor and musician Jerry Larew and podcaster, author, and trans rights activist Marissa Alexa McCool. And I've also got some brand new content that I recorded with Erica Kauffman. Now, Erica Kauffman was the guest in episode 4. She's the co-owner of Atomic Cotton. She's an artist, a horror fan, and an all-around rad chick. In between the time that I recorded her episode and when we're getting ready for this episode, my computer decided to die for all time, and it took her original outtakes with it. But because I always have so much fun when I'm talking to her, I said, you know what? What the hell? Let's go ahead and just record some new outtakes. And so we have some great brand new original material that wasn't from the original interview, but I think you're going to enjoy it as well. We had a good time. We laughed. We talked about poppers. It's going to be a good time. So definitely stay tuned for that. So basically for this episode, what I'll do is I'll give you a little bit of an introduction, a little bit of context, let you know who I'm talking to and what we're talking about, and then I'll play the clip. And that's pretty much it. It's a great way for you to get a little taste of each of my guests in case you haven't listened to the full interview yet. Now remember, these are only parts of the interviews. They're a lot of fun, but it's not the whole story. So if you haven't checked out full-length episodes 4, 5, and 6, make sure you add that to your playlist. Now let's get cracking, shall we? Let's start with some outtakes from my guest on episode number 6, Marissa Alexa McCool. Now this outtake from the very beginning of our interview, we take just a moment to introduce ourselves, and we talk about the common connection that brought us together, my friend Georgia. We both love and adore Georgia, and she just has a way of bringing people together. And in this case, it really saved my ass. On the evening that we recorded our interview, I was originally scheduled to record my interview with episode 5 guest Jerry Larew. So because of some scheduling issues that came up at the last minute, he wasn't actually able to meet, and so I had an empty spot in my calendar. Rather than waste it, I put out kind of an open call on Facebook to see if anybody was around and interested in doing any interviews, and I was super excited when I saw a message from Marissa. Her podcasts, The Inciting Incident and The Sis Are Getting Out of Hand, are a lot of fun, and she's got some great things to say. Enjoy! Well, thanks for meeting with me kind of at the spur of the moment.
I literally do this, like I said, like 4 times a week. It's no problem.
I had somebody that I was going to interview tonight, and then he had to reschedule, and I was like, but I want to. So I was like, well, let's just see who's around. Who wants to do it?
I am always willing to do this. So.
We should probably introduce ourselves since I've never actually talked to you in person before. I've talked to you a little bit over Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I met you through my friend Georgia.
Who's lovely and fantastic.
I adore Georgia. She is so wonderful. She programmed herself into my phone as my favorite lesbian. Not even her name. And she was just like, if you ever don't know who's calling, you are in so much trouble. And I was like, that's all right. You will be my favorite lesbian forever, officially.
I love it. I love it. She and I went on a couple dates, but we clicked as friends, so it just worked the way it did.
Yeah, I enjoy Georgia a lot.
Me too.
And she just has this wonderful way of being in the right place at the right time. And she just meets the right people and is like, you need to know this person over here.
Yeah, she met me on Her, of all things. To be like, oh, yeah, we didn't end up, like, dating or anything, but now I have someone who gives me all these cool writing assignments and just pops in every now and then to be like, hi, I'm your orange flannel lesbian friend. How are you?
In this next clip, we talk a little bit about the very special environment that's created when you're in college. That kind of strange space between youth and adulthood, where you're starting to grapple with some of the real-life grown-up problems of the world, but you're also in this sort of safe, protected space. And more than any other time in your life, you're really allowed to play with and wrestle with ideas. And while we were talking, Marissa and I both shared experiences from college where the reality didn't always match up to the ideal situation that other people had while they were attending school. It's just the nature of that sort of college community that at this point I've seen so many young queers like come here and move away that they start to blend together after a while. But it's interesting to me the way that there's such extremes. You know, it's not like it kind of stays the same. They ping pong back and forth between wanting to be more outspoken and wanting to be more assimilationist.
Yeah, I really think college especially is one of those places where you get both reality and something that will never be reality outside of college. And it's tough to blend those two, especially in the school that I went to, which, you know, it was Ivy League. So I was the poor kid on the outside looking in. But at the same time, they are very seldom malicious, but they are oblivious as shit. So it was always about the fact that I was an older student with experience outside of prep school. It blew their mind that I would have to do silly things like have a job. It was just...
Yeah.
They don't have to think about that because they have trust funds. And I'm sitting there like, no, some of us actually have to go to work on Monday.
There's something about school that I really miss. There is something about that bubble that you're in where you're just awash in ideas. And then, of course, the real world sort of creeps in. Because I worked all through school. And so it was always that back and forth of going to this place. And I was an English major. So that's all we did was like read books and talk about shit. And it was fantastic. It was this wonderful like playground of ideas. And for a while, we had a bunch of staff that were really interested in the English department of talking about queerness and literature and all of these different kinds of things. And then, you know, having to head on down to the mall and do my shift and eat my shitty pretzel down at the food court. And in this next, more extended outtake, Marissa and I talk a little bit about the horror genre. She tells me a little bit about why she's not actually a big fan of the genre, and we also discuss some of the potentially transphobic portrayals that are central to the history of horror, which also segues into a discussion of what types of portrayals Marissa likes to see in the media of trans people and trans experiences. You're not a horror fan at all? That breaks my heart just a little.
Sorry, I'm autistic and I can get a panic attack very easily. So jump scares, and I don't know if adrenaline's the right word, but those kinds of situations can be very difficult for me. So I try not to have them on purpose, because sometimes walking around with this level of anxiety and hypervigilance is all I need to have be fear driven. If I can be sent into a panic attack just because someone opens a door unexpectedly, I really don't think seeing blood and gore is going to do anything for me. I'm just a really sensitive person, especially when it comes to visual consumption. So I'm very, very careful about what I watch and listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. My friend Emma just wrote a really interesting article, and I forget which publication it was, and I should know the name. I'll have to look it up. But she was writing about a lot of the sort of potentially transphobic tropes that happen in horror cinema, especially. It was written for a horror-themed publication. But I think that spills over into other genres as well. The way that trans people are presented in media is really just finally coming around to a place where there's much more diversity in terms of the representations. What kind of trans portrayals do you think are the most interesting? Like, are there any specific movies or books or other sort of media products that you think really do a good job of presenting, you know, maybe a particular kind of trans experience? Because obviously not everybody's experiences are the same. So like maybe a particular experience, or maybe talks about trans issues in a really thoughtful, interesting way.
Well, beyond podcasting, and I'm of course biased to some of my fellow podcasters in the media network, I think the best movie portrayal I've seen of a trans person is Boy Meets Girl. I remember I was watching that movie, and in the first 20 minutes, it was kind of like, oh shit, I know where this story goes. I know where this is going. And it didn't. And that was fantastic. And I really ended up loving that movie. That's a good example. I have a friend named Dharma Kelleher who writes crime fiction, and that's totally not my genre. But she writes about this character named Jinx Ballou, who is a trans bounty hunter. And the fact that she is trans is incidental. That's the kind of portrayal that I like, because we don't want to tragedy porn ourselves. We don't want our entire identity to revolve around the fact that we are trans. So when, hey, there's a trans character, hopefully played by a trans person, when you can take that and not have the fact that they're trans be the reveal or the entire basis of who they are, that's, I think, where a lot of us want to be. And you're right about horror having some terrible portrayals of trans people. I mean, two of the most famous horror movies of all time deal with transphobic bullshit. Silence of the Lambs and Psycho. Norman Bates and Buffalo Bill don't do us any favors, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. And those were two of the main touchstones that she used in her article, starting with those and then talking about other kind of more B-level, so Sleepaway Camp and some of those that have, you know, trans characters or characters that I think are read by audiences as trans. Because I think that's one of the things that complicates the discussion is that a lot of those portrayals, well, Buffalo Bill is an exception, but Norman Bates and Angela from Sleepaway Camp are never expressly put forward as someone who self-identifies as trans.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's really an interesting piece of that, of what do we make of those readings. And she addresses that in the article as well. The way that people read them is also important in addition to the way that they're written or the story that's written for them.
Absolutely. That makes sense.
We had some discussions about that because I think I had some disagreements with some of the things that she had in her article, but I think that regardless of how you feel about any of the specific movies, because one of the things that happened when she published this, and maybe that segues into a good question for you as well. So she put out this article where she's just saying, hey, I love horror. I'm a horror fan. I grew up with these movies. I loved these movies. But now, as somebody who is writing as an out trans person and is involved with horror in a different way, I have some problems with some of these narratives. And it doesn't mean I don't still consume the genre and I don't still enjoy the genre, but let's take a look at how we represent trans people. And I think that you don't have to agree with every one of her points to say, well, yeah, the way we talk about trans people and present them in the horror genre specifically are not really great.
Yeah. Not much I can add there.
And so I think, I realized that I stopped and hadn't asked the question. This is why I usually prepare beforehand. But what I was thinking about is that, so she posted this, and what happened is, as you can imagine, there's this typical sort of fanboy response from white heterosexual men who are upset that somebody is questioning or examining or interrogating something that they love. All right, to start off, the article that I referenced in that clip was from Emma Alice Johnson. It was published on HorrorSociety.com, and the title of the article is "It's Time to Talk About Transphobia in Horror Films." I know that clip ended kind of abruptly, but that clip leads directly into the segment of the interview that's included in episode 6, where Marissa and I talk about fanboy behavior, the nature of fandom, and what it means when one group of people is treated as the dominant perspective and is suddenly faced with media that doesn't line up with their perspective. If you haven't listened to that interview yet, make sure you check out episode 6, and you can also check out more of Marissa McCool's writings, her podcasting, and other projects at rissmccool.com. In this first outtake from actor and musician Jerry Larew, my special guest on episode 5 of Janessa After Dark, we share a couple of our convention experiences, meeting some of the random celebrities who attend. Jerry is a big Tom Holland fan and was recently able to meet him and talk to him at the Horror Hound convention in Cincinnati, Ohio. In turn, I shared a story from my very first Days of the Dead, where I had a chance to meet two of the stars of the 1980s classic Karate Kid, Martin Kove and Billy Zabka. Now, the encounter didn't go exactly as planned. It ended up costing me over $100, but it led to a really great story.
Horrorhound puts on a after party for the awards for all the filmmakers to connect and network and everything, which is a really awesome idea. It's put together really awesome. There's free drinks, free food. It's incredibly nice of Horrorhound to do that. Mad props to them. I can't speak highly enough of it. And Tom came to it, and I wore my Evil Ed Bright Night shirt because, you know, Tom Holland's the best. He was across the room, and he saw my shirt, and he came over, and he shook my hand, and he wanted to get a photo with me, which I was like, okay, this is like getting to be one of the best days ever. And then I, you know, being a horror nerd that I am, I have a Evil Ed tattoo on one of my arms, and I showed him that, and he loved it. And it was just really cool. We got some photos. He was in there chatting with all the male directors, and Brooklyn and 2 other female filmmakers were out in front. They're like, man, we'd really like to talk to Tom. It's really packed in there. We're just out here. We're too shy to talk to him. And I was like, well, I'm not. So I went in there, and I didn't interrupt any conversations, but I was like, hey, Tom, there's some female filmmakers here. There's only 3 of them. Would you mind, once you're done, stepping out and chatting with them for a few minutes too, because they're here and why not? And yeah, followed me out. He put his hands on my shoulders. It was so packed, and I had made like a path to get through, so I'm really good at getting like through crowds. So it's just kind of funny that Tom Holland we'll have like our own mini train going through all these people to get to Brooklyn and these 2 other filmmakers. He came out and talked to him, and they got a photo with him, and it was really an awesome thing that they put on. And Lloyd Kaufman was there from Tromo chatting up people. I got a photo with him. He was super nice. It was just a really cool event that they put on, and it was super awesome to go and basically have that experience. It was very genuine and fun, so that made it really awesome.
My favorite story from the first Days of the Dead that I went to was I ended up spending $120 on this dumb Cobra Kai photo. And let me tell you, I've gotten my money's worth because I've used that photo on calendars. If I sent out a Christmas card, it would have been my damn Christmas card. So I bought the like pro photo op with Billy Zabka and Martin Kove. And I did it because I'm kind of hot for Billy Zabka. He's not like traditionally hot, but he's like that hot dad on your street. You know, seems kind of boring, but then you see him mowing his lawn and you're like, yeah, I'd hit that. And so I went, and I didn't know. I had asked them beforehand, the people from Days of the Dead, okay, like if you buy a pro photo op, do they sign it? And they said, well, it depends on the guest. Some will sign it for free. Some will charge you for the signature. It really just kind of depends. And so I went and I took the photo with them, and they said, oh, you should stop by the table and get it signed. So I thought that was an invitation, that I was going to get a free signature from these 2. So I was like, okay, whatever. To be honest, I've never seen Karate Kid all the way through sober.
Okay.
I was never into it as a kid. I tried to watch it once as an adult, and I got super shit-faced drunk, and I passed out in the middle. So I've never seen it all the way through. They had them in this corner, and you had to go to Martin Kove first and then Billy Zabka. So they kind of flowed you through like that. They just assumed you wanted to go to both, I guess. So I'm in line or whatever, and I hand him the photo, and then his little manager person is like, okay, that'll be $30 after he had signed it. In my head, I was like, oh shit, like, do you have any rubbing alcohol? Like, cause I'm looking at it, I was like, I just spent $60 on the photo. Now I'm spending $30 on this fool to sign it. And Billy Zabka is the one, if I was only going to have one of them sign it, it should have been Billy Zabka. I was like, oh, sure. And then I just paid it or whatever. I was like, whatever, I'll just eat this and I'll just, do whatever. And then we're standing there, and I think Martin Kove may have had something to drink. Like, I think he might not have been entirely sober at this moment. So I'm now in the line for Billy Zabka, and all of a sudden Martin Kove just like stops what he's doing, and he kind of turns to me and he's like, hey, you, the big queen. And so I turned around, I was like, yeah. And he goes, you're the most beautiful thing in here right now. And I was like, thanks. And he said, yeah, there's some women that are going to be pissed about that. And then just goes back to signing.
Nice.
It was so random and weird. And so I was like, okay, I got my $30 worth because I got that story.
That's really good.
And in this next outtake, Jerry and I talk a little bit more about the infamous panel discussion from Horror Hound in Cincinnati, Ohio, why things went wrong, and why it's so important to be respectful to your fans. And they try to play it off like, oh, it's just acting. Oh, it's just acting. But it's very interesting because at times, and certainly as somebody who's a horror fan myself, I have to justify to other people why I have an affinity for this genre that can be so violent and so gory and, really kind of push boundaries. It brings up an interesting point about, where are the lines between entertainment and reality. If anything else, I hope it starts a discussion.
The one guy from the film was on the panel. Don't get me wrong. He was up there. and the panel was supposed to be about distribution and sales. It wasn't supposed to be promotional panel for their film. The second guy from the film that was there was in the audience, and he ended up on stage with a microphone, and he just kind of took over and said what he wanted. He got himself a chair, from what I've heard. Like, Brooke was up there. We have a film that's here, that's showing. You don't see me running up there on stage. You don't see any of the other films. Why are you talking about your film when it's supposed to be a sales and distribution thing? He shouldn't have been allowed to be up there in the first place. And then what they had to say about things, I'm just glad it's not my business. We respect our fans, and we wouldn't. I mean, you just have to watch what you say, because like everyone's reacting to that. My input's basically, I'm glad I missed it, because it didn't seem like something I'd want to sit through, honestly.
That's it for actor and musician Jerry Larew. Make sure you check out his band Rat Tail on social media, and you can find out more about She Was So Pretty and She Was So Pretty, Be Good for Goodness Sake at dirtcandyproductions.com. Finally, my last group of outtakes aren't really outtakes at all. Over the winter, my computer hard drive decided to melt down, and not only did it take 2 full-length interviews with it, it also took all of the outtakes from Erica Kauffman's original interview for episode 4 of Janessa After Dark. But just like Beyonce, I am always looking to turn lemons into lemonade, and I love having a conversation with Erica Kauffman, so I said, you know what? Let's just record some brand new content. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. A little crazy, as always. Things are a little bit nutty, as per usual.
When do you leave for your trip?
I leave tomorrow.
What time?
Not till like 3 in the afternoon.
Oh, that's nice, at least.
Yeah, in the winter, I had scheduled like a 7 o'clock flight on one of my last trips, and it totally fucked me over. So I just was like, nope, afternoon.
Yeah.
So usually there's like an 11 o'clock flight. I don't know what happened. Grand Forks it's awful because there's only Delta is the only airline, and so they only have a few flights a day. But usually there's like an 11 a.m., so I don't know if that was sold out or what, but my options were 5 in the morning or 3:42 p.m.
What?
And I was like, unless I'm going to go on a bender the night before, there's no way I'm getting on a 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah, that would be bad news. And then I would be too drunk and they wouldn't let me on the plane anyway, so...
I'm going to Seattle.
That's right. I have to get to work, people. What's wrong with you? I have people's lives to help. And they'll be like, what do you do? And I'll be like, I work for Amazon.
I am Amazon.
I am Amazon. I am. You need to let me on this plane, sir. So there isn't a whole lot to say about that previous clip, except that it makes me laugh, and it's pretty typical of the kinds of shenanigans that Erica Kauffman and I were up to on our most recent interview. But after that lighthearted introduction, things got serious, and we talked about the real hard-hitting news from Erica's life, the 24 hours that she spent in Facebook jail. So the first thing, obviously, I can already tell that you're a hardened person now because you spent some time in Facebook jail.
It was rough.
It was
rough 24 hours.
That time changes you.
It really does. I saw some shit. Things went down.
So tell me about how you got thrown in Facebook jail.
Okay, truthfully, I'm not sure. I got a t-shirt from a friend, and it had the Valentine's candy heart on it, and it said, "Stay there, I'll get you a towel." And the heart is like covered in jizz.
I know, it's so funny. It's so good.
It's a super cute shirt. So I thought that it was maybe somebody found that shirt super offensive. But at the same time, I posted like 20 photos that day because I got all this mail and all this shit. So it could have been any of those photos. Because all Facebook did was like sent me this thing that said, somebody reported something you posted as offensive. Click the photo that is offensive and we'll delete it. And I was like, none of these photos have nudity or are like offensive language or anything. So I didn't click any of the photos. None of the photos got deleted and I still got put in Facebook jail. So nothing happened, but I was just like kicked off Facebook for a day. But while I was gone, like everybody made horrible memes of like all these fucking memes about me being in Facebook jail, and it was pretty amazing.
That was my best day ever on Instagram, I have to tell you. Like,
there was so many.
Every time I turned around, there was a new like Erica in jail meme.
Jail.
It was so perfect.
Well, and I make such like stupid faces on a regular basis. There were all these like crazy, like I'm stuck in jail faces, and my head on Elvis Presley and shit. Like it was ridiculous.
That was probably my favorite, the Elvis Presley Jailhouse Rock meme.
That was that one.
That was pretty good. That's the thing about Facebook. They will straight fuck you up because they will just tell you, like, there's a problem with something you posted and we're not going to fucking tell you what it is.
Well, and I also shared a GIF that was from Return of the Living Dead, and it's where Trash dances on the tombstone. And, like, a few days after that, a buddy of mine got kicked off for posting that. So I was like, maybe it was the GIF, but I don't know. So, or is it GIF? Is it a GIF? Who the fuck knows?
I think there's a big debate on that. I like to call it a GIF because it reminds me of peanut butter, but
I like to say GIF because it's like a gift. It's a little gift.
It's a little gift into your life. That was an Instagram day. It was like we just gotta stay away from Facebook for the day.
Yeah, it was really hard though.
They're so fucking strange. They're just trying to stay relevant. Poor Facebook. Clearly, that segment was recorded before Mark Zuckerberg was summoned before Congress and had to explain to a bunch of pinch-faced white men how the internet works. Now, in our next clip, things get a little bit racy. Erica shares with me her love of a different film genre other than horror, and since we're riding that True Confessions train, I decide to tell her, and now all of you, about a secret, scandalous adventure from one of my recent trips abroad. If you're listening with children, and I don't know why you would be, this would be the perfect time to ask them to go mix mommy another drink. Because this section is gonna get scandalous.
So this is outtakes, so I guess we'll get a little, graphic or whatever. But recently I've realized that I love gay porn. I love it.
I'm on board.
Okay, because like straight men, they don't act all sexy and like, yeah, my body. But gay dudes do. And so it's like, I kind of like watching gay men be all like sexy. So yeah, I said it out loud. I'm loud and proud. I love gay men.
I like it. So I have to tell you, this will be like the X-rated sloppy seconds. So that's fine. So while I was in Seattle, like hooked up with this guy, because it's always been on my bucket list to sleep with somebody who's a porn star. And I'm using the term porn star really loosely. Like if you're posting your own cell phone video to like XTube, like I don't count that. But if you are like in any sort of video that's on any sort of website that's not owned by you or your mama, then I'm going to count you as a porn star. So I was in Seattle and I was having a breakdown because I was getting ready to turn 40 and it was just not a good time in my life. And so there's this site called rent.men where you can go and get an escort. And I'm like Googling, because they always say that they're porn stars, but I'm like, I don't believe that. So I'm Googling. And through that process, I found this guy who the only videos that I can see that he's appeared in is this site that's so fucking cringy. It's called Family Dick.
No.
And so it's this site where they set up like pseudo incest porn kind of things. And it's always like stepdad, stepson, so it's not like true incest.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
But this guy was super fucking hot, so I did it anyway. And I was like, it counts. He was on Family Dick like twice. So, but that site, I want to wash my hands every time I think about it. But also the dads on that site are so fucking hot. Like I can't, not even like muscle god hot, but
Family Dick apparently.
Oh, familydick.com. I'm telling you. There's something about it. They're like the hot dads in your neighborhood that you just want to have sex with.
There is not any in my neighborhood.
And not in your neighborhood? No, not in my neighborhood either. I need to move to a new neighborhood. But yeah, so familydick.com. So cringy. Just so awful. But he was hot. It was worth it. It was an investment in my future, and it was worth every dime. So at least now you know part of the scandalous story. Don't worry, I'm sure there's a blog entry or two coming about my entire midlife crisis breakdown that I had on the eve of my 40th birthday. But in addition to giving us something to laugh about, that encounter with the guy from Family Dick also gave me the opportunity to provide Erica with a little bit of education about the seedier side of gay history. Enjoy! In that little encounter, that rendezvous, if you will, I also got a chemical burn because... So, I don't know how, I never discovered these before. I've also recently, discovered poppers, which I'm super into.
But what are the, the confetti poppers?
No! So poppers, the hardcore stuff that's truly illegal is amyl nitrate, but it's like a little inhalant and they have it in little brown bottles. But if you're gonna buy it, and that's the weird thing, there's all these laws about it, so you can never go anywhere and say that you wanna buy poppers because they'll kick you out of the store and all this kind of shit. So most of it is sold as video head cleaner for VCRs. So you have to pretend that you're a VHS enthusiast and you're like, my VCR is just getting very dirty. What option? Very dirty. Very dirty. So what options do you have for me to clean my VCR? And then they show you the selection and you have to, and you ask that, do you have any recommendations? And they're like, well, everybody's VCR is a little bit different. And so, because if you're an undercover cop, they can't be like, well, I really like this one. I sniff it all the time. And so you can't, it's this whole dance that you have to do. But I didn't realize how strong that shit is. And so we were having a good time. During one of the intimate moments, I was trying to get a little hit on the poppers and I spilled it on my nose.
Oh, shit.
And I didn't think of anything. I just kind of wiped it on the blanket or whatever. But I got a chemical burn all around my nose. Everybody thought I was a cokehead.
Oh, God.
And it's how do you explain yourself? How do you explain your way out of that one?
I was just huffing chemicals while I was having gay sex.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
It wasn't cocaine. I was just huffing video head cleaner, while I was hooking up with a porn star prostitute. So.
From Family Dick.
Family Dick. So I truly am a trash person. That's.
I love you so much more now.
Oh, I have to laugh. And I've started saying that. My new favorite thing is to say that I'm a trash person. Except that sometimes I almost say trash panda, which is a raccoon. And then I just laugh because it makes me giggle. Oh, God.
I'm assuming you've seen the movie Cruising.
Oh,
it's older.
With Al Pacino.
Yeah.
I have. Yes, it's been a long time.
Now I understand because they're always huffing.
Yes, that's poppers.
Okay, I get it now.
Yep.
Yeah. I love the whole hardcore gay scene. I should have been a boy.
So now Erica knows what poppers are, and knowing is half the battle. And for our final outtake, I follow up with Erica on how her pets are doing. In her interview, she told us a little bit about her 2 dogs and 2 cats, Pork Chops, Applesauce, Poops, and Ralph. These fur babies are enjoying their own sort of Instagram fame, and I wanted to check out and see how they were doing. Erica told me about how her adorable brood is being immortalized in some fabulous merchandise, and then told me a little story about how even her pets can't be featured on an episode of Janessa After Dark without getting caught up in my scandalous lifestyle.
We are actually doing a shirt design with all of our guys on it. Jellico is working on a nice little cartoony pet shirt. The Atomic Cotton Gang is going to have all of them on it.
Oh, I love it.
So hopefully people buy it because I think it'll be really cute. And people really do. Everywhere we go, people ask us about our pets. I mean, I guess I do post 5 million things about them all the time, but they're my life. So, that's what I do.
I love it. Instagram always has pictures of you napping with your pets or there'll be a video. I love it.
Yeah, last night it was Friday night and Zach has band practice. So I was just home alone and I was laying in bed and I was looking on my phone and then I moved my phone and there was totally this interspecies love thing going on between Ralphie and Pork Chop. And I was just I have to film this right now. And it's totally wrong and inappropriate, but I'm sure I'll post it later because it's just what are you guys doing? And it was just balls. But, it's that family dick, just, right there.
Family dick right there. Oh, I love it. All right, I hope you enjoyed all of these fabulous outtakes from my interviews with Erica Kauffman, Jerry Larew, and Marissa Alexa McCool. They were all wonderful guests to have on the podcast, and there was just so much good material. We couldn't fit it all into the regular episodes. And so, of course, who doesn't love some good sloppy seconds? If you like this episode and haven't checked out the rest of Janessa After Dark, make sure you check out my playlist on SoundCloud, iTunes, or Stitcher. And stay tuned for our first ever very special episode featuring drag queens talking about gender identity. This episode of Janessa After Dark Sloppy Seconds includes royalty-free music from bensound.com. The tracks included in this episode include Actionable, which serves as our intro, Buddy, which played in between each of the interview segments, and Sexy, which you're listening to now. For these great royalty-free tracks and more, please visit bensound, that's BEN sound.com. Janessa After Dark is written and directed by Chris M. Stoner and is a Champagne Dreams production.